the case of sharing it later. All right, so just so you know, the session is being recorded and the video will be made available later. Now you see the opening tag, right? Just with angle brackets, open and close, then with a P inside. And if you look forward again, you will see the content in between the tag, which is my first HTML declaration. And if you go to the last stage, you will see the closing tag. Now the closing tag, just the difference between the opening tag and the closing tag is the /. And when you look at it closely, you will just see the difference, which is the /. Now the / indicates that this is the end of the declaration. So what we have here, the entire of this is an element declaration. So this is, so if anybody's asking you about HTML declaration, this is what it looks like. You know, at the end, you might see a lot of them that might look confusing, but this is basically how it works. If you want to declare a form, if you want to declare a blog post, thereabouts, in blog posts, you have several paragraphs, you have your header, you have the subheader and the likes. Okay, I mean, so if you look at it, like I said, the entire of this is what we know as HTML element. So this is what's, if you hear about the element tag, this is what it is. Opening, closing, and the content in between. Another thing to take a look at when it comes to HTML is what we know as attributes. Now, attribute is a very handy set of elements tool that makes it possible for us to target each of the tag on the page. So imagine we have like 100 paragraphs on the page. How do you target each of the paragraph? Imagine we have 200, imagine we have thousands. How do you target them? Will you have to start selecting them one after the other? No, this is where the class attributes comes to play. So there are several attributes you can see in the HTML, but I mean, few of them will be interacting with. We have the ID, IDs and identifier that allow you to identify a particular tag on the page. The same thing too with the class, which you're seeing. So I can say, I can target this class, this very tag among thousands of tags, and I'll be able to select just this very line. And that's how powerful it is. We'll be seeing that tomorrow when we'll be using our CSS to target each of the tags and make them display in a particular way. So and that's the overview of how the tag works. So in the next segment, we'll actually be doing an example, we'll be playing around what we can use the tag to do. And we'll be building a very simple project. And that's the project we'll be building is a form. So the form is just going to be like a sign-up form. Sign-up form, you would see on every browser or every website you visit. And to do that, I would like to take questions. If you have any questions, please just drop me a message. Let's tackle questions before we move further. So based on what you understand around the HTML tag, what do you think? Is there anything still confusing when you hear the word HTML, which is hypertext markup language? Is there anything that is not clear that you want us to discuss right now? Just let me know before we move further. Okay. Okay, for you to participate, sorry, my mic was mute. Oh, thank you. All right, so for you to participate in this section, normally you would need, like I said, you will need a browser. Then you would also need a text editor. So normally we use, excuse me, we use VS Code. Let me see if I can share the screen. Okay. So let's just type VS Code. So you can download VS Code, right? For any of your operating system, Windows, Mac, any of them can be used with any of this. So once you download, then you can use it to start writing your HTML. But as for today, we won't be using that. We'll basically just be using a software, an application written by Mozilla. So what Mozilla does is they call it Mozilla Jsbin. So the Jsbin allows you to just write your code online and it will be displayed. So for you to be able to get the Mozilla bin, I think the URL is JSBin. I'll paste it on the message so that everybody can just start. In case if you want to follow along, where's the message? I'm trying to paste so that everybody gets. Okay, so I'm sharing it with everyone. That's the link. So if you have a laptop, you can just go into it. Now, if you check, let me see if I can zoom closer. Yes, I think it's possible. So for you to declare an HTML, let's assume you want to declare an HTML through the VS Code. Always know that every HTML will be saved with the .html extension. You can think about it as the way you have JPEG files on your laptop, maybe an image tag or something like .mp4, which is for video. So for you to save a file as an HTML and to be recognized as such, you need to save it with .html. Now, this online tool that we'll be using, which is Jsbin, is a very handy tool. The moment you write anything, for instance, you could see the results at the right-hand side. So it has a live server that helps us to write and see the result. Tomorrow we'll be exploring directly on our VS Code. But the reason why we are doing it right here is just for us so that we don't get to start creating files and to save our time. Now, what we want to do is to write a simple form that allows people to input their information. If you look at the structure of the HTML, it's a very simple thing, really. So you will see after the HTML declaration, which is, you'll see that everything is wrapped inside, inside of the HTML tag, which says that the entire content is an HTML. Now, this doc type at the top indicates to the browser that please use HTML5, which is the current latest version of the HTML. Now, if you look at inside the HTML tag, you see the body and the head. Now, if you look at the head and inside the head, you see some meta information. Now, this char sets, this meta tag is basically just telling the browser to use the standard format for the character set. On the other hand, this viewport is basically for visibility on several devices. Now, for the title is basically the title of the site. If you look at the top side of this browser, you will see Jsbin, Jsbin. Let's assume that we change this to something like our HTML form. if we'll save, automatically we've changed the title page for our site. Now, if we go ahead so anything you edit on the head doesn't show, like, so the head just means that giving the browser more information about your site. That's where you put the keywords, how people should be able to search for you and find you. That's what will be on the header. But in the body is where we'll have all our content, anything you want the user to be able to see. All of them will be found, will be declared in the body. So like I said, the first thing we want to do is to write our form. Now, in declaring the form, there are several tags that can be used. We have div tag. So I think the best way to look at it, after this class, you can just Google and just say HTML tags. HTML tags. So you can do W3 School, which is an organization that help people understand and study about the web. So you see several tags. I'll also copy and paste the link. Yes, so Abiodun is saying the closing tag must have a // That's correct. It must have a // If not, it will look like an opening tag again without the // Okay, all right. So moving forward, we need to declare our form element. To start with, we need an header. We need people to be able to know that this is a form. We can say our form header. So there are two ways to do it. You can wrap it in a form and just declare your form. You can say form opening tag. Then we need to close our form tag, / then form, then the angle brackets. So in this form, we can make every declaration that we want. First that comes to my mind is we need a header tag, something that tells people that this is a form. So I can have an H1. So H1 stands for header 1. We have from H1 to H6. Now, the higher the number, the lower the hierarchy. So H1 is the highest, which is the highest hierarchy of a test. But the thing is, for every page, I think you should have one title, right? Title of the page. Now, if you look at it very well, the title of our page will be sign up. We can say sign up with us. There's something wrong here. Yes, there's something wrong. So I'm supposed to first declare the H1, close, then I'll close it, H1 again. As you can see, we have our header, right? So it's as simple as that. We declared our form, declared the closing, then have our title, then have the closing tag for the title. The next thing we want to do is to create the field that people will fill. Now, for every form, there's need for you to give the user idea of what you want them to impute. Maybe you want the username, you want to add a label of a username, right? You want the user to know that, okay, this is the username. You won't just add an empty box because people will know what to put there. So to do that, we want to wrap our entire, so every cell, every component of the form, we want to wrap it in a div. So I'll say the angle brackets, we have the div. So the div container really is, it doesn't really mean, as for H1, we know that H1 is header. H2, we know is subheader. But for div tag is just a container. Like, it doesn't really mean, it just means that it's a container. It doesn't mean anything in specific aside the fact that you can use it to wrap your content. So we have, let's close the div tag. We have div. Then, So the first thing we want to declare is the label of the form. Then we need to still wrap that. I think let me just give you a space so that we can see what I am doing. Label, then, so for the label, we need to add an attribute called for. So label for username. You'll see how to apply that in a minute. So the label, we're going to give a username. We're going to give a username. Then we'll close the label. We have backslash label. So automatically we have our username. I think we should add is a column. Now the next thing we want to do is to add the field. Now in adding the field is input already. So automatically you have an idea of what the next tag will be, input. So let's try it out, input. So input has an attribute of type. So the attribute of type allow you to either select email, text, phone. You will see that just in a moment. So let's say the type is text. Then already you could see that we have our form. I mean, the user could see that we have something for them to put their information. I will also still put a label for them to see. You can even go further and add another attribute to the form, to the input, and say placeholder, then you have username. Then I can have, for instance, Noir Olatoye as a placeholder. You see, so when the Noir goes off, that looks really cool. Now let's take a look at what we've done. All right, so we declared the title for the form, and we also declare our first input. We added a label. The label is what shows the username, and the input type, which is text. That's why when we type text, it accepts text. Now, the next thing we want to get a capture from the user again is their email. So instead of us typing this thing all together again, we can just copy this whole container and just paste it below. So you can see that we have two names already. All we need to do right now is to, okay, so something is missing. Now we say, let me just undo. Something is missing here. We said this label for username. There's nothing here tying this label and username. So to tie the label and the username, we need to declare the ID. So the ID is declared as ID username. So automatically, these two things are tied together because you have for username, which is the username that you declared here. So if we copy the same thing and we go ahead, you see the same duplication. So all we need to do right here is to edit. So the label right now is for email. So we just edit to email. We can have user email. Should we give a space there? Okay, let's just leave it as that. So in the text, in the input, it's no longer a text. What we want is email, not just text. So if we edit this and just change it to email. And this 4, we change it to the ID 2 to email. Then on this, we just say example at email.com. That doesn't exist anyways, but at least we can see. So before, you could see that this is suggesting text, all manner of things. But when you look at this, the only suggestions you will get are emails. Because why? We already declared the type as email. Now, another thing to look at is we want to capture the password. We want to capture their password. So we can copy this and paste. I want to paste another one because we'll do retry password 2. Now, for this, we'll just title it password 1, because we want to check people to retry password when they enter it. So we can say password, then we come here as well and just change it to password. So you see what happened once I change the type input to password. Password, then we need to change it. We need to change the ID 2 to password 1. Then I don't think we need placeholder here. Okay, we don't need placeholder there. Let's just leave it empty. So if you look at it, if I start typing, it doesn't show anything because it is considered as a password, and password are meant to be hidden, right? So the next thing we will do is to also apply the same thing to our retry password. Now for the retry password, we'll make sure we just come here and say password 2. Then we can just have password. Then here too. So the type is password. Then we have our password 2 as the ID. We also remove the placeholder. If we save and we look at it, so you will see that the both of them are now in the password format, which looks really good. Okay, so the next thing is, the form is not complete without a submit button. So we would, I don't want to save this. So we'll just proceed to add an input, which is also the submit button. So we can say, we can also have input, or we can have button, then closing tag. Oh, I think I'm missing something. It should be BUT button. I'm also still missing backslash. If I save this, I will see a little box, but we need to add something, maybe submit. Submit. It looks really cool. The next thing I want to do is to add the type submit. Type, because if you click it right now, it just takes you somewhere, right? But let's add the type, sorry. Okay, so I think if you click it right now, it doesn't really do anything. So let's have the type submit. Okay, you shouldn't still really do anything at this point because we have nowhere to submit our, there's no server side to help us to submit. But if you look at what we've done, pretty much, let me zoom out a bit. If you look at what we've done, we've declared our first ever HTML tags. And if you look at what we've done from the beginning, it's all about opening and closing tag, like opening and closing tags. Really nothing much than what we've done. You'll see the div has the closing tag. Now, I must also still mention that there are some tags that are called self-closing tag. Now, self-closing tags are tags that do not require this backslash and closing tag entirely. An example is this input. If you look at it very well, we don't have the closing tag. So tags like these are called self-closing tags. Another example of a self-closing tag will be an image tag. An image tag does not have a closing tag. There are several of them that does not have closing tag. But the cool thing is, like I said, you mustn't have, cram all of these things. The moment you need any tag at all, the internet is there for you to search. And once you search, you'll be able to read let me see if I can switch so that we can see the screen. Yes, let me switch to this. Okay, so the link I shared, these are all the lots of HTML tags. It's really cool. You can read about them and you would see how you can apply them in your project. One thing I must point out with you getting very used to the HTML tag is that is how it is very important for search engine optimization. So if you want your website to be seen by people, you need to use the appropriate tags. Because the way the search engine works is when somebody search for something, right? Even before the search is being done, the search engine already crawled all the web pages around and searches through all the web pages based on the hierarchy of their text. So if you don't declare your header tag as H1 and you give it a paragraph tag, before the search engine will start searching the class of paragraph, you would have seen somebody else's site that has an H1 with a best match for the search. So that's why it is very critical, important for us to always apply these tags when we are making our designs. And that's the end of our class for today. So let me take questions. Let me show you what our finished designs will look like tomorrow after we finish applying the CSS. I am getting that right away. Well, I would like to take questions. If you have questions based on what we have learned, I would like to. Okay, so this is what the form will look like at the end. If you look at it, it looks really neat, clean, centralized, mobile responsive, it's responsive to several devices, and it's pretty much looking clean. And this is the kind of things people would expect to get if you start designing, or even if you want to start reviewing designs, you have an idea of how it works. So I'm trying to get my message box just for me to see if there. So that's the end. If there are comments, I would encourage you to talk about it right now before we call it a day. So if you want to say anything, you can unmute your mic. Okay, at password, what if I want to enable user view their password? Okay, so that is another, so I think that can be done with JavaScript. So I can use JavaScript so I can add a button that when they check, that's why when you visit some of the sites, there's a button that when you click, it will unveil the password. When you uncheck the button again, it will hide the password. So those can be, you can do that with the JavaScript. Do we still have any other question? All right. So if there's no any other question, I really appreciate you guys for joining today's session. What I promise is not to take much of the time. So it's 40 minutes already. And I wish everybody happy coding. Please, if you're yet to follow us on our social media handle, please do that. And we'll get in touch. And if you're in need of any technical help in terms of all of these things, you can always reach out to me. I'll be able to provide you advice. Okay, what we need to have for tomorrow is, okay, basically, please download VS Code. Just download VS Code. I think that's pretty much what we need because we'll be styling with CSS. So what we've done today, we'll be styling it with CSS. We'll be adding class, we'll be adding more IDs, and we'll be targeting it with our CSS to make it look like this. So all you need tomorrow is the VS Code I spoke about the other time. So if you want to download VS Code, you can just Google download VS Code. So when you just Google that, I think the first link you will see is actually their site. It's a free open source IDE that's integrated development environment that allow you to write all of this code in several languages. The cool thing about the IDE, there's something called Intellisense. Intellisense allow you, it predicts code for you. So some of the things I was typing manually, tomorrow you will see how it can be typed. Just the first letter will make the many suggestion. I just need to hit enter and I would see what I was looking for. Okay. All right. We're going to call it a day. Thank you so much, everyone, once more. I really, really appreciate your time. It was really fun talking to you guys. Okay, I think there's another comment. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, so I'll be ending this session right now.